everyone. Welcome to PHTV Channel 4 in Palos Heights. I'm Sue Jankowski, and we are doing the travel show. And as you hopefully know by now, this show has got a lot of adventures waiting for you to just take one of them and go off and do it, because we've got some really, really exciting things. And today has some really interesting and different things that I think you'll really enjoy hearing. And with us today, as always, is our good friend Kathy Janes from Classic Travel in Worth.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Always.
Yeah, appreciate it. It's very good.
Well, and Kathy brings us a guest every time. And our guest today is Cheryl Gatto, Director of Sales for the Midwest for Hurtigruten.
That's
very
good.
I feel like I want to just be the person on the Muppets, you know, the Swedish chef, whatever.
The Swedish chef.
Yeah,
yes.
but it is a Scandinavian Norwegian company, and Cheryl was with us a while back, and she talked about Iceland. And I don't know if you remember that episode, but it was really great because Iceland is not that far, and you can, go to this beautiful bath area with this deep lake. I remember that being, so important and beautiful there. But now we have a whole new thing you can do. And I think if anybody's ever wanted to go to that Scandinavian area, this is something that you may really be interested in. So, Cheryl, thanks for bringing us this great information today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Now, with touring Norway, I guess explain what your company is doing, and is this all land, sea, water? What is the outlook here?
Well, our company is 126 years old. So it's a company that's not very well known in America much, correct. Especially in the Midwest, but certainly well known in Europe. So for 126 years, we've been cruising the coast of Norway, providing goods and services up and down the coast of Norway from Bergen all the way up to Kirkenes, which goes up right up against like the Russian border. Then we turn around and we come back down to Bergen, to continue bringing goods and services. So along that way, we sit down and we've got guests that travel with us, passengers, that want to sit down and explore the coast of Norway, where you do get more of a cultural immersion into the area. So I tell everybody, as far as Hurtigruten's brand is concerned, we are 126 years old. We know the coast of Norway like nobody else does. We get into places where the other ships cannot, because our ships are smaller in scope to begin with, and because we've been there for so many years, we have licenses that the other big ships just cannot get into. Our ships are smaller, so it makes for the whole experience to be more intimate, and providing what we call sustainable tourism up and down the coast of Norway. Because as a company, we bring goods and services to the villages and towns up and down the coast that ordinarily you couldn't even get to by car. So it really is a two-way street in terms of they give us goods and services when we come into port, and then we also are dropping off goods and services to them as well.
I like that idea, because sometimes, being on a big cruise ship, you pull into the tourist area, and you look around there, and that's all great and fun, and you take your little adventures. But this sounds a little, like you said, more of a cultural immersion, because you're going to those small towns, and you're in a smaller ship, and you're doing that. Really get a feel for the people and the places. You
do. So if you have any Scandinavian ethnicity, certainly Norwegian ethnicity, most likely you know the name Hurtigruten. But if you aren't familiar with the name, and then you sit down and you think, well, I probably have family still over there. That's what we find a lot, is Americans still have relatives that are in Norway, in these little villages, and they want to go and visit and see and explore and understand the area from which they are from. And given the fact of how popular that TV show was, The Vikings, on the History Channel for the last few years, Viking culture, Viking history, Viking anything is very, very, very popular, even right now. So you're not going to get anything more authentic than doing that in Norway.
Okay, that's good. So describe, like, then, with the smaller ship, say we want to do that trip, we want to go to Bergen, we want to follow the Viking adventures, what would we start to do with that? What would we be looking at?
When you take our cruise up and down the coast of Norway, it's a 1,200 nautical mile route. So you're going up and down the coast of Norway, and you're visiting 34 ports of call. So within that, within those ports, you could sit down and get off the ship, kind of like they do in Europe, where you're doing the river cruises, and you can get off in one port area, get off the ship and go and do some sightseeing. Maybe it's dog sledding, maybe it's fishing, maybe it's going to some of the villages and checking out, the architecture and so forth, or the museums that are there. I mean, there's much to do, but most of it is outside because the Norwegian culture is heavily outdoorsy. That's just part of their DNA. They love to be outdoors, participating in what the outdoors has to offer. So, deep sea fishing, certainly king crab fishing, doing those kinds of things. It's wonderful for people that love that kind of experience.
Here's the whole coast that they sail.
Okay.
From all the way down, I was just learning about this today too when we were sitting here for a little bit. It's kind of amazing what you can see on this part. The best thing is that guarantee that they give you.
Right. So when we are cruising northbound and or southbound, but particularly northbound on our 12-day voyage, you cross the Arctic Circle. And when you cross the Arctic Circle, we go 450 miles north of the Arctic Circle. So during the months of October through March, we have what we've referred to as our Northern Lights guarantee. And for clients that really want to sit down and see the Northern Lights, because I don't know if you know this, but I was telling Kathy about it, there's two things that are on people's travel bucket list in their lives. Number one, this is ASTA, who sits down and, that's the American Society of Travel Agents, sits down and takes these studies and performs these studies, and they came back with these findings. And the number one thing that a passenger or client wants to see on his bucket list is the Northern Lights.
Yeah, I go with that one.
The number two is the seventh continent of Antarctica.
That's very interesting.
No kidding.
Yes.
Wow, that is not on my list, but the first one is.
Yeah. And I think the reason being, quite honestly, is that passengers have traveled so much globally all over the place. The baby boomer market is the largest segment of the traveling market right now, right? So many baby boomers have already done ocean cruising. They've done river cruising. They've been to Disney. They've done Alaska. They've done a lot of those trips already.
Right.
So now they're looking for, well, what else can they do?
Yes.
Yeah. Or you might have that client that sits down and says, geez, I don't want to do a cruise. I don't want to travel with 4,000 people. That's just not what I like to do. Then you sit down and you say, well, what else can we do? And you make the suggestion of an expedition voyage. And people sit down and they'll say to me,
what is it?
What is an expedition? Yeah. What does that look like? What does that entail? And so what an expedition voyage really is for the client that is looking for small ships. They want unique itineraries. They want cultural immersion. And they want to become what we refer to as a citizen scientist. They want to not just go somewhere, but they want to learn. So I think the craving for, the baby boomer market, quite frankly, is, geez, we can go anywhere on a trip. But if we're going to go somewhere and spend money,
I want to learn.
I want to learn, so that's the big factor.
Mm-hmm. Especially, as you already noted, you've been to this island and that island, you've been to Europe and all those places that, are typical of travelers. You want to do something different and see something outside your normal limits, which this certainly would be. So now you're on this expedition. So when you decide to take a trip like this, at a regular cruise, you have an itinerary, you can pick 12 different things you want to do once you get to your destination. How does this work?
So an expedition is just that. It's going to be fluid. It's going to change. You're going to have an itinerary, starting out on day 1 and days 12 or day 24 or whatever it might be, because most expedition voyages are longer in scope anyway. None of them are 7 days. They're going to be 12 days or longer. Okay, when you go through the Northwest Passage, going from the Atlantic Ocean to the Pacific Ocean and going through the Canadian Arctic, it's a 29-day voyage. So not everybody can do that, but for that person that is kind of like a Jeremiah Johnson, and he really wants to explore the Arctic of Canada, and he wants to go places where nobody else has gone. Okay,
this is it.
This is it. This is a Northwest Passage voyage. So you start out on an itinerary, but it needs to be fluid because you might not be able to get to
certain places.
A certain place. So with the understanding that, okay, well, we're not going to get there today, but maybe we'll be able to circle back and get there tomorrow. Okay. So fluidity is part of the understanding of anybody who takes an expedition, whether it's Antarctica, whether it's Northwest Passage, no matter where it is. That's just part of it. And then, the learning part of it is so important. We have expedition team members that travel on every voyage with us. These are folks that have advanced degrees in geology, ornithology, biology, marine biology, and they interact with the passenger complement throughout the voyage. They take you off the ship and you go ashore, and you'll sit down and maybe collect ice samples, water samples, land samples, and we use underwater drones on some of our ships. So it really does make the whole experience very, very different.
That's really kind of exciting, and especially for people who've done a lot of traveling, or maybe if you haven't done a lot of traveling, you're like, I really want to do something really outside the norm. That certainly sounds like what you want to do. So when you do go, you say, okay, I want to do this cruise. You got a great, itinerary. You're going to stop at these and those places. Then you say, well, I may or may not be seeing some of these things. There's no guarantee for those things because you have to be fluid, except for the guarantee of the Northern Lights. You will see that.
Yeah, you will. The Norway Coastal Cruise is very different from our expedition product. Okay. Our expedition product has what we refer to as, Zodiacs and ice boats that are on our main ship, right? And then we take the passenger off the main vessel and then onto the smaller exploring vessels.
Is this also the one that you showed me where they spend the night on the ice?
Right. So Antarctica is, like I mentioned, on people's bucket lists. And because Antarctica is such a pristine area, we have all kinds of timelines that we allow people to do, going ashore and so forth, because we don't want anybody to damage the area that they're traveling into. So we have some shore excursions that we offer that are optional. One of the optional shore excursions, as Kathy was mentioning, is tenting on the ice.
For a night? For
one night, overnighting on the 7th continent. And there are people that sit down and say, I've slept on every continent on the globe.
Wow.
I want to do this. Well, it's by lottery only. It's so popular that the captain sits down at the beginning of the voyage and says, okay, who's interested in, tenting on the ice? 100 people might raise their hand. And he'll say, okay, well, we're only pulling 20 names.
Oh, wow.
So it's done by lottery.
Okay.
And so the expedition team takes our guests onto the ice. They set up the tents. They overnight on the ice. And then in the morning, everything comes back to the ship. And I do mean everything comes back to the ship.
I bet it's not really glamping, is it?
It's not quite glamping, but it's more like REI or like North Face type of thing. It is. I mean, it's a real experience.
Yeah, really rugged and natural, and it's something unforgettable.
It is. But make no mistake, when they come on board our ships, they have what we refer to as a comfortable base camp. So the ship is their base camp, with creature comforts. I mean, there's swimming pools on our brand new ship, the Amundsen. We just recently have our new ship called the MS Amundsen, the Royal Amundsen, that is currently on its way to Vancouver, British Columbia. It made it through the Northwest Passage on her maiden voyage.
Oh, that's cool.
She is a hybrid ship, meaning that she's part electric and part biogas. And so it's the first ship in the industry to sit down and do that combination of fuel. because again, we don't want to leave any carbon footprint behind, no matter where we go.
I think the other cool thing that you guys do, because you were telling me about it, is that no plastic.
Well, right. We've eliminated all single-use plastics on every one of our ships globally.
I think that's really important.
So no straws, no cups, no plates, no plasticware, no nothing. You know, we don't, you know, if we're going to sit down and say that we are a responsible travel partner with the world, we want to make sure that in part, you know, as part and parcel of that, that we're not leaving any type of, you know, things behind in the water, ashore, on the shorelines, anywhere.
Yeah.
So we do honor that, and we do respect that in terms of how we treat the places that we travel and how we share that information with our guests.
Yeah, well, that's great, because some cruise lines are really misbehaving badly with that. And
they are.
You know, you don't want to see that at all, and I know they're maybe trying to shape up a little bit. And I saw some kind of news thing on, and I don't even remember what cruise line it was, but they have now the whole recycling area, like vast, like on their deck somewhere, where they're eliminating all the plastic and they're recycling the plastic that they do have, and that's great to hear that they don't even do that in Hurtigruten.
No, we don't. We've eliminated that 3 years ago. It's all over our brochures. It's on our website. We're very proud of that fact because, you know, our expedition team, no matter where we are globally, we send like an advanced team ashore to make sure that the terrain and the wildlife and everything is safe for our guests to come ashore to experience the area. And so sometimes, you know, no matter where we're at, you know, we may have to engage the passenger complement to sit down to say, okay, we need to pick up these plastic ropes or these plastic bags that have floated into the shoreline, you know, because even though we try our darndest to make sure that it's kept clean and picked up, yeah, we want to make sure that it is.
Tell them about the polar bears.
Yes, so I think you were mentioning something about your son having been in Svalbard. So Svalbard is an archipelago group of islands that is owned by the country of Norway, and it's north of Norway, so that tells you how far north it is. And so Svalbard is known for being the largest polar bear population in the world. So there's 3,000 polar bears to 2,000 human beings that live
that's just cool.
in Svalbard. But one of our expedition team members had gone ashore, as I just mentioned, to do a preemptive strike to make sure that there was nothing bad there. And when she came ashore, she found one of those huge plastic ropes, those woven ropes that the big cruise lines use to tie up their ships and so forth. And the rope was wrapped around a polar bear cub neck and the mother bear.
Oh my gosh.
And the animals were struggling, so they had to tranquilize the animals and take those ropes off of their necks in order for them to survive.
To live,
yeah. Exactly. So they may have died just because they got caught up in all of those plastic items that end up floating ashore from not just the cruise ships, but the cargo ships and anybody that's
and people. I mean, just
traveling
regular people.
That's
out.
exactly right.
Yeah, exactly.
So that can be part of your excursion too, to
definitely.
to go a little further and do that as well.
Oh, definitely. Yes, our passengers. Again, you know, people ask me sometimes, you know, what's the average age of the client that would travel with Hurtigruten? And I was telling Kathy that it's probably, you know, somewhere between 60 and 65. Folks that have the time to go on a voyage that's a little longer in scope, and certainly further away, such as Antarctica. Also, we had a gentleman in January of this year. He was 89 years old. It was on his to-do list. He wanted to go to the 7th continent, and we made that happen for him.
I think that's so cool. 89, good for that guy.
He wanted to go.
Yeah.
And so our crew were so thrilled to have him on board that they were just, you know, all over making sure that he was taken care of. Having a great time.
Doing
Exactly.
what he needed to do.
Right, right. So when you travel to Antarctica, you do not need any immunizations. People sometimes will ask that question, do I need shots or anything like that? All that you need is a letter from the doctor to say that you're capable of making the air voyage, not the cruise voyage, but the air trip, because it's a long trip from Chicago down to South America, down to the southern tip of South America.
Okay.
That's a long way.
It is. It's a long way. Exactly.
Okay, so now if a viewer wishes to go on a trip like this, and it's an expedition, and you talked about swimming pools and so forth, like some people want to have those nice amenities, you know, a nice stateroom, good food,
yes.
and all of that.
Right, exactly.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. So on the Roald Amundsen, we have 3 dining room options on board the ship. By the way, attire is very casual, which is why I'm dressed like this today. It is. It's sweaters instead of suits. No dress-up nights.
Thank you.
You know, very casual, very comfortable. Fleece is fine. Fleece is king on board all of our vessels, and especially in the dining rooms, and even in our fine dining room. You're completely fine with a sweater and a pair of slacks. The ladies can wear yoga pants and cute little hiking boots and so forth. And then, our other creature comforts on board the base camp would be, we have a full-service spa. So we've got spa treatments on board the vessel as well. We do have a swimming pool, and people think, why would you have a swimming pool in Antarctica? But you got to realize, too, that in Antarctica, and this is the truth, I mean, we live here in Chicago. We know it just went through the polar vortex this past winter. Mm-hmm. So, but people down in Antarctica realize that when that sunshine comes out down in Antarctica, it's hot. People go outside and they've got 3 or 4 layers on, and by mid-morning, they are peeling back the layers because that sun is very, very warm. But there is a swimming pool, and people like to take advantage of that and then go into the spa and enjoy that as well. There's a fitness center, complete full-service fitness center, as well as a running track on board the vessel itself. So we do have those creature comforts. However,
yes,
no casinos.
Okay.
No theaters with show reviews. Instead of that, we have lectures and seminars at sea given by our expedition team to sit down to kind of give them an idea of why did we just go to where we were, or where we're going to go tomorrow, or let's talk about, the migration patterns of the penguin, or the migration patterns of certain whale species. So that's what we have as far as our entertainment.
So fascinating, and
exactly,
you can see someone dancing anytime, but to get that kind of information when you're in the location and you start knowing what to look for, and makes you appreciate your trip a little bit more too. And those people are right there, and they've got all this information. So it's nice for them to impart that to the people who are traveling.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we turn them into citizen scientists.
Yeah,
I guess think of us. I like to say. I told Kathy earlier. Think of us as the Discovery Channel on the water.
Yeah.
Because you really are learning. We have an amazing science center that we bring all of our findings in, and we sit down and we look underneath microscopes. And on our voyages as well in Norway, we've got amazing telescopes. So it isn't, just going somewhere, but it really is immersing yourself in learning.
Okay.
I think that just sounds so cool.
It does sound wonderful. So due to the fact that you're going to a very cold region, there's got to be certain months that travel best. I mean, you mentioned October through March. Is
that's for Norway? That would be for Norway.
Okay.
And then for Antarctica, because that's again on people's bucket lists, it's a season. And in Antarctica, the season is from October until the end of March.
It still is, okay.
So, but here's the thing in Antarctica. So earlier in the season, like October, November, is when the snow is pristine. Right? The penguins are there, but they haven't been doing what penguins do, which is migrate and mate, okay? So if you want to go there for photography, that's the time to go, is to capture the snow when it's pure and it's white and it's fresh. Then later on in the season, you're starting to look at, November, December, January. That's when the breeding happens, the eggs are laid and hatched. And then, so that's a different season as well. And then for the later part of the Antarctica season is when the whales come in, the marine life comes in, the mammals come in. So it kind of depends. If you're going for pristine snow, you go early in the season. If you're going to see the birds and a lot of that wildlife, you go mid-season. And then if you're coming really to see the whales and want to see all that ocean life, so to speak, then you go towards the end of the season. It's like February, March.
And that period of time, October to March, that's the time period.
Right.
So you don't plan to take your trip in June.
No. We relocate our vessels in June because remember, Antarctica, our winter is their summer is our winter.
Yes.
So when the ships are done in March down in the Antarctica season, we move them globally to other parts of the world.
Okay.
Yes, we do.
So really, I mean, to catch what you want to see, which Cheryl just told us, you really need to plan kind of far in advance.
Almost
so that,
a year in advance,
so that you know, I really want to go in October, November. You need to plan that now for next October, not this October.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe by
Very
some
much
chance
so.
you could get a spot, but it would sound like these are pretty popular.
They're very popular, and to get the cabin that you want on the date that you want, remember these ships are smaller. They're, the Amundsen that I just mentioned is 500 passengers. She's our largest vessel, and she has all outside staterooms, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful staterooms on board the ships. So, but smaller in size. So it's not like you're traveling with 1,000 passengers. You get up close to the whales, and literally you can sit on the shoreline in Antarctica, and the penguins will literally walk right up to you.
Yeah. So if you're like loving the wildlife,
If you're loving the wildlife, if you're loving nature,
Yeah.
if you're loving ocean life, marine life, there's not going to be much better an experience than, say, Antarctica or even Norway for that matter, as far as, the skies go and astronomers go and anybody who's looking for northern lights along the cultural immersion of Norway.
One more thing, just to throw in there, when you cross the Arctic Circle, there's a little ceremony that you guys do,
Right, we
which I
call
think is
it
good.
Arctic baptism. Crossing the Arctic Circle, you are totally given an Arctic baptism.
And I said to
with
Cheryl,
water.
With water, oh yes. But then you've got aquavit afterwards.
I said to Cheryl, it's kind of the same thing when you cross the equator. The old sailors on the ships used to have a thing that you, on one side of the equator, you were, I probably got this backwards, but a pollywog, when you crossed it, you became a shellback. And they had to kiss the heaviest man on the ship that his tummy was smeared with leftover grease and things, and you had to kiss it.
I know, right?
Okay, that's a horrible.
Well, that's that's just King Neptune taking
just
care of
doesn't-
our
yeah.
passengers.
I just like this better.
Yeah, it's King Neptune coming out to
Yes.
giving you an Arctic baptism.
Yeah, you're not
Exactly.
doing something. Anyway, this sounds like something particularly maybe for people who, because there is a certain group of people that are like, ew, a cruise, all that food and people, and I don't like that. And, this sounds like more tailor-made for a specific person who doesn't want the dancing shows and the casinos and that kind of,
Correct.
wonderful fun time that some people like to do, but other people don't prefer that. So this sounds like something
This would be-
that really
yes.
is up
Yeah.
people's alley, where they say, I'm not interested in cruises. Well, this is
Not a cruise
really
particular,
a
yeah.
cruise.
This is an expedition.
Yeah,
and that's why, I define what is an expedition: small ships, unique itineraries, being fluid in terms of, the schedule, because it's going to change. It will definitely change.
Yeah, so be flexible and
Be
just,
flexible on that voyage.
You're an adventurist. I mean, that's
What this is.
fun.
This is more of an
Yeah.
adventure than it is a cruise, I would say.
Exactly.
Because
Yeah.
you get to do so many cool things, with a penguin coming. That would be cool.
It would.
That'd be
Cheryl,
cool.
anything else our viewers should know before we close up for today?
Well, if you're interested in, experiencing nature in its pristine form, Hurtigruten visits, we only talked about Antarctica today and Norway, but we also visit Svalbard, as we talked just for just a moment. We visit Iceland. We circumnavigate Iceland, which we've talked about previously. And we go to South America. We do some South American itineraries. Northwest Passage for clients that want that true Arctic experience, the Canadian Arctic, and Alaska. So if Alaska's on your list to do, but you don't want to do the traditional Alaska, we have a fabulous itinerary that includes the Aleutian Islands.
Oh, wow.
And no other cruise line that I know of goes out to the Aleutians from Kodiak and then goes up to Nome, Alaska. So I know Alaska is very popular here in the Chicago area and certainly in the Midwest. And we do have we have 3 different itineraries for Alaska that are amazing.
Well, and if you've done the Alaska typical tour, maybe you want to, if you enjoyed that, you probably did, it's pretty nice there. Maybe you want to do something that's just a little outside the norm. And so that would be the time to hook onto this.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that sounds great. So Cheryl, thank you.
Thank you.
For letting us know about Hurtigruten, because that's a great name that you need to become aware of, and you can do that by contacting Kathy at I wanted to say another place, Class Act Travel.
That's okay.
Class Act Travel, which is located
at 6946 West 111th Street in Worth. We're on the corner of 111th and Worth Avenue. Our phone number is 708-448-6560. We are open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, Saturday, 9 to 1. If you need an evening or a Sunday, just give us a holler, tell us when you can be there, and we'll be there. All right? It's not a problem, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, and if you wanted to go see those Northern Lights, which I do, you need to kind of latch on to this because you get a guarantee, and that's pretty exciting. Well, thanks for watching us. Cheryl, thank you. Kathy,
thank you.
And we'll see you next month when we have another great place to go on The Travel Show. Bye-bye.